Okay.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another
Oladipo!
one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finney, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is Friday, and it is a sun-drenched Friday. It looks like it's going to be. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joins me as always. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me on, as always.
It's great to be here. It's great to be here on a Friday, just because we're that close to the weekend. All kinds of stuff going on. You've got the women's Big Ten tournament that is happening right now in Indianapolis, but of course you've got sectional play and championships that will be happening tonight and tomorrow night. Play and then championships tomorrow night going on as well. You've got the finalization of who's going to make it in on the men's side, basically on the NCAA basketball side. The conference tournament won't be until next week, but there's some teams that are playing themselves out right now. One of those, Indiana. We'll talk about that as well. Do they have a shot to stay in? So plenty to get to. Dylan, how are you, man? What's been up with you? What's new?
Not a whole lot. You know, I was at last night. I was here in Fort Wayne, the start of the Horizon League tournament where Purdue Fort Wayne was playing. They advanced from the quarterfinals to the semifinals. They'll play again on Monday. Purdue Fort Wayne 2 wins away from the first NCAA tournament bid in program history. So very exciting. They've won 10 games in a row.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on. I should have gotten you involved in the Jerome.
Yeah, Kevin Brocco actually sent me the link.
Did he send it to you?
Oh yeah.
Did you fill it out? This involves all of the conference tournaments.
Yes, I did. I did pick PFW to win, so I'm a little bit of a homer on that one. But yes, very excited to participate in that.
We'll see how that turns out. Other college basketball games in action. Let's see. This was on Wednesday. Rutgers beat Indiana, of course. Maryland beat Minnesota in the Big Ten. Then I went too far. Then on Thursday, you had Illinois, which was last night, barely get by Penn State at home. That looked like that was going to be a big-time upset for a while.
That came a few days after Ohio State lost to Nebraska at home. Some of the Big Ten leaders are kind of limping toward the finish here.
Ohio State, though, even though they've been playing a ton of games, they have managed to handle it. Last night they take on the Michigan State Spartans, and you want to talk about a team that is in a free fall. Michigan State. Luckily for them, they had probably done enough to already get themselves in the tournament, because if it wasn't for that, I think that you could look at them as a team that is they're 19-11 right now. They're one game away from being Indiana, and the only game that they've won, I think, here of late in the last maybe 5 or 6 games is probably against Indiana. So we're seeing a kind of a drop in the Big Ten right now, it seems to me, where it was looking a lot stronger in the middle during the middle of the season. They're kind of taking a hit at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the teams that have, the only team that really is not struggling right now is Wisconsin, which has really finished the season strong here. They're going to win. They already clinched a share of the Big Ten title. They can win it outright with another win on Saturday. But even Purdue has lost 2 in a row here. Michigan State, the only games they've won in their last 8 are against Indiana and Purdue. So they are Yeah, so it's pretty impressive how some of these teams are struggling down the stretch. Michigan State is actually interesting because if they lose again down the stretch here and Michigan wins, that would put Michigan State as the number 8 seed in the conference. Indiana is going to be number 9. Those two would face each other on the second day of the Big Ten tournaments. There's a good chance that Indiana has to play the Spartans again here with a whole lot on the line.
Yeah, so yesterday, Wisconsin, this was day before. I'll make sure I refresh this. Yeah, that was not refreshed. So then also you had Michigan, who is they may have taken a final dagger there. They lose last night to Iowa, 82-71. It's at 16-14. I just don't see how they're not on the outside looking in right now. I'll have to pull up the bracketology or the bracket analysis from our friend Michael Corsi here in a second. But I would find it hard pressed at 16-14 that they're still in after that loss to Iowa. Iowa's looking very solid at 23-8. Yeah. So, yeah, Michigan, they're in trouble.
Yeah, they have a chance to get one more big win against Ohio State, I believe, in their final game, and then they're another team that if they lose and Michigan State wins, then they'll play IU in that 8-9 game. So you could see either of those teams with again a whole lot on the line. Michigan IU could end up being something of the winner still has a shot and the loser is done. So that could be.
I think. I've been saying that if Indiana, I expected them to lose in West Lafayette. And yes. I'm not saying that because of anything other than if it was Michigan going into, well, maybe not Michigan, but if it was, another team that's around Indiana's position right now, I'd say the same thing. But Purdue's not playing the greatest, but it's not anybody else. It's Indiana, number 1. So you cannot duplicate another team coming in to be Indiana. They just get jacked up. The fans get jacked up to another level, and it makes a difference. It didn't. So we'll see how that turns out. But can Indiana shock us and beat Purdue? I've been saying all along they've gotten a snowball's chance in hell of doing that because of what I've seen them do at home or wherever, how I've seen them play, how they basically fold in the last minutes, not of a game, of a half. Yeah. Every stinking half, they get outbeat. They were, even against Rutgers, they had an 11-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the half. They did not go into the locker room with an 11-point lead. I can tell you that. And then, of course, we know what happens at the end of the halves. But I've never seen a team that has a plan. They follow the plan. The plan works. Great success. And once they have great success with it, it's like they pick it up and throw it off the damn ship into the ocean. Halfway through the game. Seriously. It's like, all right, that was great. And that was fun. Now we're done with that. And then it's, whatever. I don't get that. I also don't get all this blame does not go to the players. I also do not get why Woody is not calling a freaking timeout and saying, what in the holy hell is going on? Why? What? Stop. Get back to this right now. Do not don't deviate away from this for a second. Yeah. I mean, you gotta nip it in the bud, and it has never been nipped in the bud. It's been allowed to continue. And I don't know if they're attempting to straighten it out when you send a sub in. Hey, tell them to do this. Well, that ain't working. Whatever is not working. I also understand you don't have, everybody keeps saying, using the old adage of Bob Knight, meet ass, meet bench, bench retains ass. Ass sends signals to brain. If I want to get back into the game, he doesn't have the guys to do that and be comfortable. The other night in the game, Dylan, the second wave or sorts came in. They didn't hurt them defensively. They actually, I thought they did a good job defensively. I thought that Durr did a good job. I thought that Geronimo did a good job. Everybody that came in. But they just don't have anything offensively. But, of course, then again, half the time they don't have anything offensively with the first unit on the floor when they go away from the things they're supposed to be doing. Xavier Johnson has been playing so extremely well, but I think that once he gets to a point of playing so well, he almost forgets what got him there. The other night in the second half, Trace Jackson Davis had dominated the first half and raced along, but had dominated. He scored 2 points 1 minute into the second half on a dunk, did not score again until about 4 minutes to go in the game on a couple of free throws. Stop the movie right there. There is your ball game. There's no separation created. And Indiana could not hit a shot. They couldn't hit. They couldn't have hit a shot if they were standing in a boat shooting into the ocean. And you can't have that either. That didn't help things. But when you're not having that, just stick to what's working. They couldn't stop the inside until they started double teaming, and then he wasn't getting any help. But the fact that this team is where they are is mind-boggling. There are so many games that just slipped away for one reason or another, and they shouldn't have. But they are where they are. They're not out of the NCAA tournament yet, as tough as it might seem, I wouldn't think. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, no, I feel there's a lot in there that you said that was basically the same way I feel. And it's kind of hard to have any other opinion, really, just because we've seen the same movie over and over and over again, and everyone's formed essentially the same opinion about it. I will say the one good thing about that second half against Rutgers was that Mike Woodson finally listened to everyone and started calling timeouts when Rutgers went on runs. It was the first time he'd really done that. When Rutgers took the lead at 38-37 after Indiana had led by 7, Rutgers went on that run. Woodson called a timeout. I remember thinking, "Oh my God, he's calling a timeout." But yeah, so that was that part. Trace and Race not getting the ball in the second half nearly as much. That was more. I thought it was more scheme from Rutgers doing a good job of saying, "We are going to do one thing in the second half. It is going to be take those guys away." And they did a good job. They executed the game plan in the second half, and Indiana had to have some guard had to step up for Indiana, and X did for a little bit. And actually, I thought X played relatively well in that game. He didn't have the stats to back it up like he did in the previous games, because when he was passing the ball and making the right decision to pass the ball out, the shots weren't going in like they were against Maryland and Minnesota. And that's kind of life as a point guard. Is if you're going to make the right play over and over again, sometimes that's going to be making a pass with a shot that doesn't go in. And that was one of those nights where the shot doesn't go in. But he should have had 8-9 assists in that game if IU shoots a decent percentage. So I thought he played relatively well. And sometimes you just got to knock down shots. We've seen it over and over again from Indiana. They didn't do it.
Well, I think that he ended up taking too many shots himself.
That too.
And not that he's not capable of doing it. I'm trying to pull those stats back up again real quick.
I will say from his perspective, he hit what I thought was going to be the biggest shot of the game, because there was a possession with about 3 minutes left where the game was tied at 54, I believe it was, and there was just nothing going. He had tried to get the ball into Trace. It hadn't worked. The shot clock was running down. He has the ball on the wing, and there's no one really open. he just kind of takes a leaning fadeaway 20-footer and it goes in. And I thought that was going to be the shot of the game. I was like, okay, they finally made a shot that you have to make a shot every once in a while, and they finally made one. And then Rutgers goes down and makes a 3 on the other end. And that was it.
And let's also be honest, Xavier did not. He shot probably a couple too many. That maybe just there was only 1 or 2 really. He was 5 of 11 overall.
Yeah,
but Trace Jackson Davis in the first half
he was
had 6 of 8. But most importantly, he had 8 shots.
Yep.
In the entire second half, he only had 3 shots.
Only made 1 of them.
But he's only getting 3 opportunities in the entire half. The guy that dominated the entire game, the first half of the game, dominated, could not be stopped. And you're telling me he can only get 3 shots?
Yeah.
And one of those is a dunk to start.
And one of them was actually, quite frankly, the shot of the game. Was with 40 seconds left, Race got the ball in the post finally. He missed the shot, but the rebound came right to Trace. He goes for the putback from 3 feet, and it's too long. That was IU was down 1 at that point. 40 seconds left. Trace gets the ball with a chance to put them ahead, 3 feet away, and he throws it off the back of the rim. That was the shot of the game right there.
Mike says as of yesterday, they're in half the brackets now.
If the season ended today, they would not be in the tournament. Like, that's the thing.
No.
They're in less than half the brackets. If the season ended today, they would not be in the tournament. They need to go out and either beat Purdue or probably win multiple games.
Well, I agree, and I agree that, and I say even that they don't beat Purdue. I think I said they had to win 3, and we're going to take a break here and get Alec Lasley in from the Hoosier.com. But I think if they ended up actually winning 2, because that second game is going to be against a Michigan or potentially Rutgers.
Yeah, I think 2 would do it because they're going to be the 9 seed. So the second they might play, they're going to play Michigan or Michigan State, and then the second round they would play Wisconsin. So they're going to have a chance to do it, but I don't know. I just haven't seen a whole lot that makes me believe this team is capable of finishing off 2 games against good teams in a row.
Well, we got to take a break. Tim Tebow says that Rick Pitino is rumored to be having interest by Maryland. That wouldn't surprise me with what they've done. Is that true? Have you seen that, Dylan?
I have seen that. Yeah, that's it. It seems that he is apparently their top choice. I don't know if he has interest mutually if that's the job he wants to leave for.
Well,
but
let me tell you,
spend the rest of his career at Iona.
If that happens, that's not good for the rest of the Big Ten.
No,
he will come in and kick ass. I will tell you that, and I will tell you that right now. He is. I don't care what you think of him. He is a coach, and he is a freaking winner. Hey, we got to take a break. Alec Lasley with the Hoosier.com is going to join us next. Don't forget. Hey, we're brought to you by the great folks from Endeavor Hospitality of Bloomington. That's fine folks over Southern Stone Restaurant at Patterson and Rogers, where each Monday night you can find Inside Indiana Basketball with Don Fisher, Mike Whitson, also Feast Market and Cellar, great wines and cheeses. Cabello, a restaurant in the former Grazie location, BB's Marketplace, the former Wagon Wheel as well, and the Courtroom down in Bedford as well, and plenty more on the way. But make sure you get your Wow Club card. From there, you can go to either your App Store locations. Wow Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. The Wow Club is comprised of all those establishments that I just talked to. So you get invites to special things as well. The Wow Club app is available in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. So go ahead and get that. Cost you nothing. You get money added for your birthday, stuff like that. And they are a sponsor of IU Athletics. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether it's a celebration or just a relaxing night away from the kitchen, don't make the same old choices. Try something fresh and new. So there's no way to get rid of that echo there, William?
Is it still there?
Yeah.
When
Just
when you're on.
you come on.
Yeah.
It's like I think you have microphones, maybe double mic open or something.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Hello.
Oh no, it's
still there. Rick Pitino, man. Oh shit. You don't want to see that. I'm telling you.
No, I mean, that's the thing is that Iona's probably going to make the tournament this year. That would be 6 teams that he's led the NCAA tournament, I believe. That's
and he'll make Maryland the 7th.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And let me tell you this, he'll do it in year 1.
Yep. Yep. Hey, Alex, what's going on?
What's up? How's it going?
Not bad.
What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Glad it's Friday.
It is that. Oh, I guess I should mention the women. Can't forget the women.
Yeah, they
play today at 2:00 today.
2:00, yeah.
So they've already had one game in the tournament.
Yeah, they beat Rutgers yesterday.
There it is, 66-54. Well, this
Allie Patberg was great in that game.
This is a tough draw right there.
Yeah, they got Maryland again today.
Just make sure you drop out as soon as possible when we come back, William.
Will do.
Actually, though, it wasn't there right then.
It's because I'm
I don't hear it
unless I'm talking.
Gotcha. Cool beans. Big announcement coming at noon from Dan Dockage regarding Boiler Up.
Okay.
There, Alec. Guys. Oh, Mr. That's right. You're Mr. Purdue. What announcement could that be?
I don't know. Is it let me see what he said here.
That's all he said. A huge
and plenty more. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Brought to you by our good friends from the WOW Club. Make sure you get your WOW card there from either of your app stores, whether it's Apple or Google Play. You can get it there. Go there and make sure you start earning exclusive dining discount dollars. Cost you nothing, and it makes us look good. If nothing else, even if you're not around, can't go to dinner in Bloomington, get it anyway. There's other things on there that you can. You can also keep up with all the different high schools. The WOW Club, the WOW Network is amazing. It has tons of things on there. Joined now by Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com as he joins Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with myself. How's it going, man?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Can't complain. I'm not going to allow Dylan to complain if he has something to complain about. But it is that time of year where everything is getting tight, baby. If you're a fan of a team, if you're a fan of Indiana, you're definitely back down to chewing nails about getting into the tournament. Doesn't look good, but it's not dead. They're not as dead as I don't feel they're as dead as I thought that they were. Here's Rick Pitino, possibly to the Big Ten. We'll talk about that. I've kept in my mind if they lost to Rutgers, which I assumed that they were going to lose to Purdue, But if they play them close and give them a game, I think that if they win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, they could be back in. I was saying 3, that they had to win 3 to overcome those 2 losses, but it also depends on what's going on around them with other teams, not teams in the Big Ten, mind you. There are other teams out there that are maybe in a little bit worse predicament. They don't have quite the resume IU does. Not that IU has the greatest, but they played in the Big Ten. They haven't played in the West Coast Conference, or they haven't played in the Atlantic ACC, which is just weak. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think that if they could possibly win 2 games in the tournament, there is a solid possibility that they're back in.
Yeah, I mean,
that did not sound reassuring right off the bat.
I think there's a lot that's going to go in here. Obviously, in the next week and a half, there's so many different possibilities that could happen with all those bubble teams. They're going to need a lot of help. I think even if they do win 2 games, just due to the sheer fact that they're going to lose most likely. I think a lot of people are expecting them to lose to Purdue. Difficult enough to beat them twice in one season, especially with this team that they have, let alone on senior night for those guys at Mackey. So let's just, for this argument, say they lose to Purdue. That's going to knock them off another right now, potentially, if they are in the tournament in some of these brackets, move them out. If they're kind of in that last 4 in or the first 4 out, that's going to move them down another potential segment there too. So, I mean, there's a lot of different moving pieces. Rutgers that was almost a nail in the coffin, I think, for Indiana. Like Dylan said, they're going to have chances, right, in the Big Ten tournament with either Michigan State in that opener, and then Wisconsin. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't. They got pretty manhandled against both Michigan and Michigan State, and I think both of those end up being more difficult matchups than Wisconsin does for Indiana, just due to potentially more of the athleticism in the backcourt and on the wings that outside of Johnny Davis that Michigan and Michigan State have as a whole unit. So I think that's potentially probably one of the worst matchups they could have in the Big Ten opener, either one of those 2 teams. So it's going to be difficult. I really, you look back, and going into February, Indiana was 16-5 and 7-4 in the Big Ten. And you look at what they are right now, and it doesn't matter, what team you are. If you're looking to make the tournament for the first time in 6 years, if you're looking to just make the tournament back-to-back years, if you're looking to make the tournament for your 20th straight year, you can't go 2-6 in the month of February and expect to be in the NCAA tournament. That just can't happen. And when you look at Indiana over the last 5 years, they're 19-30 in regular season and Big Ten tournament games in February and March. And we've seen 3 seasons come down to potentially 1 game in the Big Ten tournament, or just winning 1 out of 2 to end the regular season. And they haven't been able to get it done over the last few seasons. And it's the same thing with Indiana this year. And it's just, that's why I don't think there's a lot of hope or potential for Indiana to make a run here, just with everything that's kind of gone on over the last month and a half.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of hope of change. It's just the hope of who that they might play that would be enough to get them past. But Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I feel a lot the same way as Alec, is that, yeah, we can talk about the path, and to be clear, there is a path. The question is Indiana a good enough team to do what needs to be done to get through that path? I just don't think we've seen it over the last month, as Alex said, and that's why that Rutgers game was so important. Was that you win that one, you feel pretty good about yourself going into the tournament, and they had that game at home, they had the lead, it was all of it, and they just couldn't get it done. And so that makes it so now you have to do the much more difficult path of beating either Purdue or winning 2 games in the Big Ten tournament. I think you're right, Jim. I think 2 games gets it done, even if they lose to Purdue. But that's 2 games in a row on back-to-back days against against good teams, right? Michigan, Michigan State, and Wisconsin are all good teams, if not great teams. And Indiana just hasn't beaten any good teams since the end of January. So I think it's a lot to ask for this team right now, unless someone, either X or Trace, just has an absolutely unconscious moment for 2 games in a row.
And here's the funny thing. If they were to play Wisconsin, I give them 0 chance to win that game. And I think Indiana has better personnel than Wisconsin, other than they don't have a Johnny Dawkins.
Davis.
Johnny Davis.
They don't have a Johnny Dawkins either, but yeah. Johnny Davis.
But they don't have a guy that they can count on. They've got a couple of guys who think that they can, or guys that can be counted on, but they don't have a guy that can be counted on, number one. But number two, and most importantly, Wisconsin will not beat themselves. They will not allow you to beat them with dumb mistakes. Wisconsin could just stand back like this, or if the game's coming down to critical moments of decision making, then if it's Wisconsin, they can just sit back with their hands back because they're going to play like they normally play, which is mistake free, solid, head smart basketball. And Indiana is just going to implode. They're going to run a dumb play that doesn't get off, and then they're going to kind of crank something up from nowhere, but you can count, or they're going to get a wide open shot and just miss it. As we've seen them do, they just cannot, they just are not an end of game team. They don't have the collective, when I say mentality, I'm not saying they're not smart individuals, but collectively, they're not a smart team. They don't do the things. They don't, this guy is not looking for that guy to get this shot, to get this to go. It's like all hell breaks loose and everybody is thinking, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do here? It's not what can I do? And I've never seen a more dysfunctional end of game team than this Indiana team. I'm not saying that the ones previously were a lot better, but they were just bad all the way around. But this team goes to hell when they're under pressure.
I think, Alec, I'm sure you want to chime in on that, but I want to just make one point on Wisconsin. The stat of the year in the Big Ten this season is Wisconsin is 11-0 in games decided by 5 points or fewer. 11-0. That is absurd how good they've been in the end of game situations. And obviously 2 of those are against Indiana. They never, ever, ever. And 2 of those are against IU. 2 of them are against Purdue, by the way. So Purdue has had this same issue at the end of the game.
What's the record of them being down 22 points in the first half?
Yeah, that's a good point. But yes, like that is Wisconsin does not beat themselves ever. And so I think Indiana has similar talent to Wisconsin. I believe you're right.
But let's be fair. The guys that are at Wisconsin have mostly all been at Wisconsin, and they average 36 years old is their average age, I think, on that team.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, their average age is last year they were older than the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
And I still think that their average age is like 24 or something. So you have a group of mature men that have been together, that have played together in that same system. So that's a gigantic difference because, yes, I think Indiana is actually across the board probably better from a personnel standpoint. You take Johnny Davis out of that because he stands alone. I think he's the player of the year in the Big Ten, and I voted for that. But yeah, we've seen Indiana have Wisconsin down twice. They should have beaten Wisconsin twice, but Wisconsin's ability to not make mistakes and to allow the other team to screw themselves won both of those games. I said this yesterday, Dylan, and Alec, it's the craziest thing in the world. As bad as this team has been, Indiana has been, you look at their 9 losses, and this was before they had lost to Rutgers, but I said, if you look at their 9 losses, you could just look at 4 of them. 4. The Penn State loss, which they shouldn't have had, the Northwestern game, which they absolutely shouldn't have lost, and to be real, neither of the Wisconsin games should they have lost. But you take just those 4 games away, and they were right at the top of the Big Ten standings, which is crazy because this is not a team that is worthy of being there. But that is how stinking close they were to being up there and being a solid NCAA tournament. This close, but those mistakes, those little mistakes, have put this team in this position.
Yeah, I want to go back to a point you said about kind of the matchups in the Big Ten tournament here, and an interesting point that you made about you not thinking that Indiana matches up as well against Wisconsin. I think that's a way better matchup for Indiana than Michigan or Michigan
I think
State.
they have better personnel.
But matchup wise, that's the game that I think Indiana would win probably way more if they get that opportunity than the Michigan State, because you know what the game plan is going to be. They're going to sag off of Xavier Johnson, and he's just going to have to make shots. That's all it comes down to. He's 7 of 32 against Wisconsin this year. You know the shots that he's going to get, and it's very difficult to beat a team 3 times in one season. It's difficult enough to beat them twice, especially the way that Wisconsin has done it. And so if Indiana is able to,
Indiana.
Well, yeah, but again, but look at what they've done without having Xavier Johnson, and we know he is how this team moves and how this team creates offense, creates opportunities. Just look at what he did in the second half against Rutgers, right? I mean, he was the only one who showed up in the second half. Obviously, he had some mistakes late in that game, but he created a couple different mini 6-0 runs, 7-0 spurts just due to sheer athleticism, his defense getting out in transition and not allowing that Rutgers zone to set up. And at the end of the day, I think if Indiana is able to get by Michigan or Michigan State, whichever one of those two they will play, which, again, I think is going to be a very, very tall task for them, they're going to have a much better shot of taking down a Wisconsin team than I think a lot of people may give them credit for, just due to the fact that, again, you know exactly what the game plan is going to be. And as long as Xavier Johnson hits 1 or 2 more shots, which he has been doing over the last few games, that's all you need from him, assuming that you get the very similar production that you've gotten from the rest of those guys, which I think everyone is well aware. You know, the role players are only going to give you 4 to 7 points a game, and Trace Jackson Davis is probably going to show up for one half of that Wisconsin game. And it comes down to, at the end of the day, Xavier Johnson being able to hit 1 or 2 shots, or not settling for those 1 or 2 shots and getting downhill a little bit more aggressively and getting to the foul line, where he's more often than not been able to obviously get a few extra points there throughout the games. 3
shots in the second half against Rutgers after going 6 of 8 in the first half. He only had 3 shots in the second half. Indiana does not have a way of getting the ball to Trace Jackson Davis, or they stop trying if there's any resistance put up. They're not, it's like they aren't prepared. They don't expect teams to ever double team him. Well, that's got to open up somebody. If you've got 2 guys guarding 1, I'm not great at math. That means someone is open.
And we've seen that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alec.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and the biggest thing with the Trace Jackson Davis second half against Rutgers was entirely the zone, right? I mean, you saw even in the first half, he ate them up inside for the first 9 minutes of the game and really was non-existent the rest of the game. And when you take him out of the game, more specifically in the zone, that puts a lot more pressure on guys like Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart to hit shots when they haven't shown they can do that against man-to-man. And now they have the pressure of knowing they're probably going to get a few more open looks, and that increases that pressure a little bit more, knowing that they have to make those, because that Indiana offense is absolutely ridiculously bad against the zone. And I don't know what Mike Woodson.
You have to ask why, because then if I'm a coach, guess what? I'm going to start playing against Indiana easily, no question. And if you don't have the answer for that, and you have a Race Thompson there who is also as dominant, then you've got issues if you cannot make that adjustment on the fly. Because let me tell you, that's exactly what, if anyone has any sense that, well, Indiana can't play against the zone, let's just run a zone against them. It's that simple. So there has to be an answer of continuing productivity in the paint, even against the zone defense.
But I will say Rutgers did a really good job of timing out their zones, because the one thing that Syracuse has struggled with over the last few years when they haven't been as good, right, is not having the longer, more athletic guards up at the top of their zone. But teams are now really starting to figure out that zone defense, because it's the exact same from year to year. You have to throw in different offenses. Rutgers played a lot of pressure full court in the second half that really slowed down Indiana, dropped back into the zone, and took some extra time off of that shot clock. And once Indiana started to get a little bit of momentum, they got Race Thompson, they got Jordan Geronimo in there for, I think, back-to-back possessions. They switched it right back to man, and that threw Indiana off a little bit more as well. So it's about the timing of when you use that zone defense, because Mike Woodson just hasn't shown that he's been able to put together a good zone offense this year. And, you know, you've been in the press conferences. I'm sure both of you guys have. When people have asked Mike Woodson about zone offense and playing against the zone, he seems to kind of shrug it off and say, we've played against it before. We'll be able to figure it out. And obviously through whatever 20, 30 games here, they haven't been able to do that. And it's been a consistent theme whenever any defense has done that, regardless of if they've done it for an entire period of time or just a short segment of time. Because you go back to that Syracuse game, Indiana obviously multiple overtimes and put up 110 points. It's not the fact that they can't score against the zone. It's the fact that they can't do it when it's in short segments, when they can't get accustomed to it. Once they get accustomed to it, they're fine. But it's when defenses throw multiple different tweaks at them that they're not able to adjust. And this has been a long-standing issue, not just Mike Woodson this year, but a long-standing issue for Indiana over the last 5 seasons, not being able to adjust on the fly throughout different periods of the games, and especially after halftime.
Yeah, I think a huge part of that is you saw against Rutgers, especially at the start of the second half, when they went to the zone, you could see there was at least 2 or 3 possessions where Indiana just kind of looked entirely unsure of what to do. And I think that's something, again, that goes back to a combination of coaching and kind of leadership on the floor, where you should be prepared for the possibility that that's going to happen, right? Either that, or you have to call a timeout immediately. Because if you don't have a plan at all of, okay, if we see a zone, this is what we're going to do, then you just need to call a timeout and figure it out. Because then you can't have 2 or 3 possessions at the start of a half. And Rutgers immediately went in front. I think that was the other part of this. They immediately took the lead. And so it was like, okay, you can't really have a warm-up period. There needs to be, this is the play we're going to run. This is the offense we're going to get into as soon as we see what's coming. And I think Alec made a good point, is Rutgers, they kind of almost alternated possessions. It wasn't like one man, one zone, but they went back and forth in the second half and kind of basically said, we're not going to give them a consistent look. And when Indiana doesn't have a consistent look to go against, they dribble around for 20 seconds. Then X tries to get them into a play at the end of the shot clock, and it doesn't work. And so he has to go to the rim. And that's what makes X so good, is he can make a play like that every once in a while. But it's just tough to do it on a consistent basis to get enough offense.
Here's a great stat from Real Doc Bob. Ken Palm's got Indiana as the 187th, or listed at 187th in player experience. And his comment says, so age may not be the key factor, possibly coaching and preparation. I think that there is a big equal slice here of, normally I don't put it depends. Yeah, Archie Miller, I did put way more, but here this is divided more equally amongst the players and the coaches for me. I don't know what's going on in practice. I'm not in there. I don't know who Mike listens to more. I don't know how much influence Dane has. It seems like Kenya Hunter has the most experience, or has Mike's ear the most, because he's the guy standing up on the sideline. He's the guy getting a technical foul. Which I don't know if that's just his personality, but I don't know what's going on in practice. Why aren't they prepared for that in late February? They played against Syracuse that kicked their ass with a zone, a team that is not very good at all. So why are they not ready for that at this point is my question, knowing that they're probably going to face it. It's just like going to the corner every day where the bully is, and you got to go to the corner. Guess what? Your bully's going to be there. And if you're not prepared for it, every day. You got to get prepared for it, man. And so I don't want to. I'm trying to not be negative, but there are just been to me a lot of coaching opportunities, as Dylan said, where the whistles come or the timeouts come way too late. It's why are you waiting? Why are you letting a second group get killed and give up a 10-point lead? Why do you not make a change when you see an offense or defense that is killing you? Stop with a timeout, make the change. I haven't seen that happen. There just hasn't been that.
I think part of that also has to do to probably a lack of confidence with I mean, you look at this roster. No one, for the most part, outside of Race Thompson, has been consistent from every single game and from every single half in every single game. So when you look down your bench and you look at guys like Tamar Bates, who's been way up and down, guy like Trey Galloway, who's been in and out of the lineup, Rob Finney in and out of the lineup, Christian Lander obviously is what he is at this point, Michael Durr. You know, there's not a lot of options realistically when you look at this bench and you're like, I feel confident with him going out and making a play. Jordan Geronimo has been able to do that, and I think he's the one guy that you look at. Why has he not received a little bit more playing time, especially in the second half of games, with his athleticism, with his ability to now be able to pick apart some defenses in the zone? He showed that against Rutgers, but his ability to kind of step out, hit a mid-range shot, and be another threat to grab an offensive rebound and to make a stop. But it's the inconsistent play from everyone on that roster that probably has Mike Woodson like, I don't know who to go with. And that's unfortunate, but that's just what it is. And that's why I think he said it against Rutgers, where people were kind of questioning why he went with the lineup for as long as he did late in that game. And he's like, I wanted to keep, they were my seniors. They're my most experienced players. I'm going to ride with them, because I don't think there was a lot of confidence in any of those other guys making plays when they needed to.
And this is a comment that also just nails it. Poor shooting has also been a nemesis, because as badly as they have played or allowed other teams to punk them at times, simply bad shooting has just killed them, because they could have won this Rutgers game with ease had they been able to just hit some shots. They could never get any separation. Even when they got out to what, 8-9 point lead, they could not get separation, because that was all coming from inside work, and could not hit a freaking outside shot, could not hit a three. And all the work that they would do, they would give up a couple of threes to Rutgers, and Rutgers would be right back in it. They never got the separation, and that's why they allowed Rutgers to stay in that game. Any normal average shooting night, and Rutgers can't win that game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
From Indiana, Rutgers.
I mean, that is the thing to me, is that in terms of, we talk about Indiana struggling against the zone. We talk about struggling with offensive consistency. I actually thought in that second half, after the first couple possessions, that they did a fairly decent job, as far as Indiana goes, of getting decent looks, right? And that was the thing, is in the last 8 minutes, Parker Stewart kept getting open 3-pointers until that last minute when he finally made one. He missed all 5. So if he makes one more of those, they're in business. And they were all open looks. They were shots that you want him to take, that he should take, and he just missed them all until the very end there. And so there was a bunch of plays where they had opportunities, they ran decent offense, they got themselves a shot, and it didn't fall. And so there's a combination of, sometimes they don't run good offense, they run themselves out of games and whatnot, but there's also just times where you got to make a shot eventually. It was the same thing, we talked about it before Alec was on. Trace and Race both had shots from the paint in the last minute. They both missed.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Trace Jackson's missed a lot of big shots this year. He's missed a lot more big shots than I recall him hitting big shots. As a matter of fact, has he hit what you would consider a big shot this year? And he wouldn't call it a shot, because it would have to be a dunk or a lay-in, because he doesn't take shots. So I don't know that he's hit a big shot this year. And that's a problem when you're your star guy, he hasn't hit what I would call a big shot this year. That I can recall. Nothing stands out. Rob Finney stands out, but that's it. That's it. I mean, maybe I'm missing it.
Well, and I wrote a piece. It was after the Ohio State game that they lost in overtime when Brand went for whatever 33 or 30, whatever it was. But this goes back multiple years now. Indiana's inability to have a perimeter go-to player. They, you look at maybe Romeo Langford as that guy, but obviously that team was so bad that it really didn't matter, and he still wasn't a guy that could really go get his own. He showed it at times, but again, you don't want to rely strictly just on a freshman to do that. And I know that's kind of counterpoint to my argument with Branham because he's a freshman, but you look at Indiana's inability. Miller, Cobb, Parker Stewart aren't guys who are going to beat you off the dribble. Rob Finney isn't a guy who typically is going to be able to do it consistently just due to the sheer fact that he's a smaller guard. Xavier Johnson is a guy who can do that, but he's not a guy who can do a 2-dribble pull-up and create his own offense that way. Indiana does not. You look at all the best teams in the country year in and year out, and they have a prototypical NBA 6'5", 6'6" wing who can go. You get him the ball in late game situations, or if you need a bucket, if the other team's on a 10-0 run, 8-0 run, and you say, go get us a bucket, go get fouled, go get some points, and let's reset the defense. When has Indiana ever been able to do that over the last 5 years, 6 years? They haven't, because they don't have that prototypical star wing player that you need to win games for you. You can't win games with big guys as your go-to star player. You look at Illinois. They have guys that you can even go back. Obviously, Ayo Dosunmu was that guy. Plummer's that guy. Trent Frazier's that guy. They have guys who, if you need a bucket from your guards, from your backcourt, from your perimeter players, they have a guy who can go do that. And Indiana has not had that in such a long period of time. And that's the one thing that continues to kill them in these games when they lose leads late, but especially when their offense goes completely cold under 4 minutes. And Trace Jackson Davis talked about it after Rutgers. He's like, we know what the issue is. It's not a confusing issue. We can't score under 4 or 5 minutes. We lock up, we get tight. And that's due to the fact that they don't have a scorer on the wing who you can give the ball to and have a lot of confidence in going to the basket, getting fouled, getting some points, or pulling up, making a play for himself. And that's one thing that Indiana just they'll get it here in the next few classes. They have some guys coming in who can do that. But my goodness, you cannot go 6-7 years in college basketball without recruiting or developing a guy who you can clear out the paint for and say, go get a bucket for us. And Indiana is almost the one team in Power 5 basketball that has not been able to do that has consistently been in these close game situations where you got to think, hey, if I had this person, that would really help me. And I just don't understand why they cannot get that guy, why they cannot develop that guy, why they cannot create some offense to get that kind of guy. And it's just so frustrating to watch year and year again, because it's the same issue year and year again, and they can't fix it.
They can't. It's not that they can't get the guy. They didn't get the guy. Archie Miller did not recruit the right guys.
But again, that goes back to not being able to get those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Archie couldn't get him, but anybody else will be able to get him. Mike Woodson's not going to have a problem. Jalen Hood-Schifino is I think going to be one of those guys. I think that CJ Gunn could potentially be one of those guys. And those are the Caleb. Those are the guys that are coming in that can do that. So Archie Miller let's be honest. I don't think he can coach. I've said it 1,000 times. And he damn sure can't recruit. I said that for over and over. People wanted to give me crap forever. I said it for 2.5 years. It was obvious to me. He can't recruit. He doesn't know the difference between good talent and not. Look at all the guys that he chose over that went to Purdue instead, that he could have had his choice at. I'm not going to start naming names, but there are plenty that are starting, playing for Purdue, doing well. It's just And then on top of that, he personally couldn't get anybody to come from outside of the state of Indiana to play for him. Look at all the guys.
That's the biggest downfall.
And he could get nobody because no one was going to come play for Archie Miller because he sucked.
Well, the biggest thing with that, since you just said that, is, I mean, you look at all the prep schools around the country now. A lot of guys aren't staying in their home state to play high school basketball, and a lot of Indiana guys are now starting slowly, even if they go to La Lu. That's not. Yeah, it's in the state, but right, that's not what you would consider an in-state kid, at least in my opinion, because that is more of a prep school that plays a national schedule. So when you look at, that was the biggest downfall. He was able to, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He was going to come win that state over again, and he did almost every single class, right? He got the top talent in Indiana to come every single class, but that's where his inability, that
top talent.
Well, yeah, but let's be honest. The state of Indiana has produced some good talent over the last 5 years, but Absolutely. In the whole grand scheme of things, those classes haven't been total difference makers, right? You look at Trace Jackson Davis, obviously stud. He's been able to do what he was supposed to do coming out of high school as a McDonald's All-American. He got Armand Franklin, who was a much lower rated recruit, who I think has was probably that one guy who developed under Archie Miller. He was able to bring in a guy like Christian Lander that everyone thought was obviously otherworldly. He brought in the guys that I think,
but he should have known
the better players in Indiana.
My point is, he should have known that he wasn't, because first of all, one of the reasons that Christian was ranked higher is because, well, I'm not going to go into it, but it wasn't because he was supposed to be ranked that high. And that's kind of one of the things that has gone on behind the scenes in rankings. And then he was manipulated into coming out of school early. So that's a whole nother thing. We're way too long, man. It was, if you're able, we can get you back on for another segment, because we went 2 full segments without even taking a break. We'll see about if you're available to come on. I don't know if we have another open segment today, but man, that was incredible. Indiana's got their next game coming up, of course, against Purdue. Alec?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Indiana can do. I think obviously it's going to come down to whether or not I think Trace Jackson Davis can stay out of foul trouble, which against some of these bigs he hasn't been able to do. We'll see if Indiana can make some shots, but at the end of the day, like everyone knows, it's going to come down, if it's a close game, to the last 4 minutes, if they can make a play. And throughout that game, if Miller, Cobb, Parker Stewart can hit some shots. Other than that, I mean, I don't know where else to point to for this Indiana team at this point.
But also, the Hoosier.com is going to have complete coverage of Indiana High School sectional championship action going on tonight and tomorrow night all over the place. I know Kyler is going to be up at the Lawrence North game, I think.
Yep, we'll have him there. Also seeing the Cathedral game as well, and then we'll have a bunch of stuff from the multiple visitors that were at the Rutgers game over the course of the next few games from Indiana.
Carr, Gabe Cups. And I will be at Seymour, as a matter of fact. But we got to run, take a quick break. Alec, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, Alec.
Alec Lasley, coming to you here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the good folks at Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a new home in the Indianapolis area, make sure you reach out to our good friends at Remax Realty. Cheryl Sizemore and her 20 years of experience could be the difference between you getting the home and not. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with Zach Osterman of the Indy Star right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I would like to point out real quick that one thing we didn't get into was, you know, who else was supposed to be that guy was Jerome Hunter. And I feel like Indiana's program as a whole is just in such a different position right now if Jerome Hunter is the guy everyone thought he was going to be coming out of high school.
Well,
because he got hurt, and you have to get past
I don't
that,
know.
obviously.
I don't know that him getting hurt derailed his career that much.
It seems like it. Like that seems to be the consensus opinion. I don't. But we obviously still don't really know.
Archie Miller is yet to recruit. His recruiting is just not. I mean, look what happens as soon as he left Dayton. They recruited Obi Toppin.
No, he recruited Toppin.
Did he? Okay.
But did he recruit him to Dayton? Did he get the commitment?
I believe so. Yeah, I think Toppin redshirted. I think Toppin took a red shirt year the year that Archie's first year at IU.
I stand corrected.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think he did.
That's why we have Zach.
How are you doing, Zach? How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. You?
Is that an MLB shirt you're wearing or a flag?
It's
flag?
Atlanta. It's an Atlanta.
Oh,
thing.
okay.
It's a play on that, but it's an Atlanta thing.
I couldn't tell. I'm like, no baseball for us this year, man. That's gonna suck this summer.
I'll be at a ballpark all summer.
The minor leagues will love it.
Yeah.
Hey, how's the little one doing?
He's in the other room screaming.
How old is he now?
Which one?
Well, both of them now. I know you got
Jack will be 4 on Sunday.
4.
He's 2 months, basically. So,
what's his name?
Eamon.
How you spell that?
EAMON.
What's the relation? Where did the derivative? Just made it up. Just made it up.
He's Irish. So
is it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you Irish?
Partly, yeah. His middle name is of Irish inspiration as well. So
I am James Patrick Coyle.
There you go.
My grandfather was James Patrick Callagher.
Doesn't get more Irish than that, huh?
Nope. Actually, Coyle and Callagher, both Irish.
There you go.
The only, but I can't find it past. I think that we're the group that the records did not cross. I can't get anything from $0 down and 0.9% financing over 48 months. And you can always get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax.
I think actually Toppin did sign
Home Pros team by Cheryl
Simon.
Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. I hope you're ready for the weekend. We are trying to get you headed in that direction. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette as always, but now joined by by Zach Osterman from the Indy Star as he normally joins us. Zach, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How about you?
Cannot complain. How's Jack? Jack seems like Jack's doing fine. How's the Eamon doing? The new one is 2-month-old.
Yeah, I got some vaccines yesterday, so it's been a tough 24 hours for him.
Well, if you got Jack trained yet to be the babysitter, that would be the ultimate.
No. Not at all. Absolutely not.
Just kidding. Yeah, I did 2 boys, 1 at 4 and 1 at 2 months. That sounds like just a fun time all day long. And trying to work along the way.
Yeah, I mean, you figure it out. We're hardly the first people ever to do it.
Absolutely. Indiana basketball, of course, we've talked about that as they are at a serious crossroads right now, kind of on the outside looking in as far as the NCAA tournament goes. I thought if they lost to Rutgers, I assumed that they would lose to Purdue. And in my mind, I'm like thinking, well, they're going to have to win 3 games in the Big Ten tournament. And I've kind of backed that a little bit. I think that maybe 2 games could get them in, but I don't know, Zach, that we've seen the moxie from this team to go out and get that second win, to get that job done. Because it seems like every time that, other than the Purdue game, when a true obstacle, and maybe the Ohio State game, has been put in their path, they end up folding, although they've won, obviously more games than they've lost. But when they're in peril, it just seems like they panic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they panic. I just don't think they have, frankly, that little extra bit of quality. I mean, in the sense that I don't know how many times I've watched Indiana. Like, I think people have used the word meltdown this season. I don't know how many times I've watched Indiana melt down. It's more that I've watched Indiana kind of get itself in a position to succeed, but then not be able to take advantage from that position. And it hasn't been, like I'm thinking about, was there that Penn State game a few years ago where Indiana literally couldn't get the ball in bounds, and certainly, to some extent, some of this had to do with the way Minnesota shot the ball. But, I mean, like, you want to talk about a meltdown, Indiana going from 27 points up to basically the game in the balance in the last minute against Minnesota. I think in a lot of these close losses, like, it hasn't necessarily, to me, felt like Indiana sort of fell apart from the perspective of getting there and then suddenly buckling under the pressure. I think it's just been much more that, in those crucial moments, Indiana's not made good plays, just made the wrong plays. I mean, or even made the right plays, but then not been able to make shots. You think about that open three that Xavier Johnson had against Wisconsin. I'm not picking on him. I mean, reality, Indiana doesn't win those two games before Rutgers, Maryland, and Minnesota without Xavier Johnson. He might have been Indiana's best player against Rutgers as well. But it's more just that, it's always felt like Indiana has been able to kind of bring itself to the ledge, but never get over it. We've heard Mike Woodson use that phrase, getting over the hump, a lot this year. And I think that's because I don't think his team, let's say, doesn't have the intangible poise, I guess, so much as it just can't make enough winning plays. And that usually just comes down to kind of a combination of coaching experience and talent.
And you would seem that even sometimes they would get lucky enough that, because they've been in position several times to have a big shot, that if it goes down, it's a big shot. And it just seems like no matter the opportunity, they just can't get that shot to fall. And that one that right sticks out freshly in your mind, like you just mentioned, was Parker Stewart, the wide open three at the top of the key, the guy that you think you want taking that shot that would have put Indiana up before the three that he eventually would hit, and would have won that game. But they just can't get that. And it's just crazy. I've never seen a team that's almost snake bit at the end of games.
And again, I mean, maybe some of that does become mental. I also just think there's a degree to which, when you get to the end of games, the margins get finer. Guys are tired, so offenses slow down. And it becomes more individual. It becomes just sort of more, strength on strength, and who can make that play, who can, think about Johnny Davis as a really good example, who can just find the way. And, I think Trace Jackson Davis could probably have been better for Indiana in some key situations late, but I also think that from Trace Jackson Davis's perspective, it's a lot harder to play that position that way, in the modern game, if you can't shoot threes and if you can't force opponents to space you out. And so I think that Indiana, has kind of had the worst of both worlds in the sense that it still doesn't have a team around that centerpiece big man that can, that can give him the room to operate in that sort of situation, a la, for example, Illinois. Illinois, you can collapse on Kofi Coburn in that situation if you want, but Illinois has probably got 39 to 45% three-point shooters waiting around the perimeter. So
salivating.
So good. So like that's the chance that there you're having to play that gamble. You maybe don't feel like you have to play that gamble so much with Indiana, but in the same breath, Jackson Davis, being somebody who does most of his scoring around the rim, is not somebody that can pull a defender away from the basket, and just go very sort of ISO one-on-one. And some of that, I mean, just does come down to developing those players, recruiting and developing those players. I don't think Indiana's had a player specifically like that. Certainly kind of an ISO player that you could, again, just sort of isolate to one area of the floor. Romeo Langford could be that at times. I don't think he was that consistently. James Blackman could do that. I mean, James Blackman could certainly create his own shot, but from a wing player perspective, you almost kind of go back to Victor Oladipo, and so maybe Yogi Ferrell, obviously not a wing, a point guard, but somebody that could score at all three levels. I just think Indiana misses that player. And then obviously certain at the other end of the floor struggles to defend that player as well.
Yeah, Dylan, the wing has been a spot of non-productivity for Indiana this season, which obviously hurts because that means you're one or two. You're either inside the from the perimeter or kicking it inside. And we've seen defensive change, whether it's to a zone or collapse, and the guys not been traced to action, not be able to get but 3 shots in the second half against Rutgers. And then the guy's not knocking down those outside shots. So, but I have seen a difference though here of late with this offense. You've seen more activity from guys like Miller Kopp getting into the paint. There's been a concerted effort. I've seen this offense has definitely changed in the last 3 games. There's been a lot more activity, a lot more movement where they didn't have that before, and there was a lot of complaints about that. I don't know if that was a result of the complaints or a final recognition. I find it hard that it was finally recognized after 75% of the season was gone, and it just coincided with the massive complaints. But is it just me, Dylan, or have you seen a difference in the flow of this offense here of late?
No, I definitely think there's been a much better flow, a better overall flow to the offense, especially against Maryland and Minnesota. You could see there was a little bit of a comfort level. And again, like we said in the last segment, I do think they ran for most of the second half, by Indiana standards, fairly good offense, and they got good shots. And that's what Zach was saying, is that they just didn't make enough of them, because sometimes you do get good shots and just not enough of them go in. And that's been the other part of this team's issue. But I do think that they've kind of, at least in my eyes, have kind of turned the offense over to Xavier Johnson a little bit more than even before, and said, go get us into something. And he's done a better job of that. I think that even, as Zach said, against Rutgers, the stats weren't there like they were against Maryland and Minnesota, but he was very, very good overall in that game. There's a couple of quick shots in there that he shouldn't have taken, but again, overall good in that game. And I think when he is getting Indiana into the flow of offense, they're a better team on offense, and they just need more of that.
Yeah, Zach, so very few people give them a chance at Purdue for obvious reasons. Purdue has not been playing great basketball, but it's at Mackey, and this is Indiana coming in, so the crowd is going to be jacked up even one more level. Indiana's already beaten them once. Hard to beat a team twice, and Indiana has not really – they don't have the personnel that's better than Purdue per se, but if they play them close, and let's say they win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, I think this team is still alive for an NCAA bid.
I mean, I think if Indiana beats Purdue, they're back in the field. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, and if Indiana beats Purdue, they're back in the field. I think if they win 2 in the Big Ten tournament, they're back in the field, because those 2 would both be quality wins at this point. Now, you can have your own sort of side debate on whether Indiana is capable of that. I totally understand that. But I think either of those scenarios puts Indiana back in the field, personally. I think Saturday's game is going to be a lot more about Purdue than it is Indiana. And what I mean by that is just, where is Purdue? They've lost 2 in a row here now. I don't know that they've necessarily been playing bad basketball. I mean, listen, in a vacuum, losing by 3 at Michigan State, losing by 3 at Wisconsin, those are acceptable results. But it's what they mean to Purdue's, it's what they mean to Purdue's season. You win one of those 2. If you're Purdue, you've got, especially if it's Wisconsin, and you can put Wisconsin down to 14-5, you've got one hand on at least a share of the conference title. Now you're not going to win it. I mean, it's I think virtually guaranteed at this point. In fact, it is. Wisconsin has 15 wins. Purdue can finish with 14 at best. And so I think it's a lot more about kind of where Purdue is. Obviously, we know Purdue is elite offensively. I mean, they just truly are. They're as good as any team in the country offensively, particularly when they're shooting the ball well, which they're very good at, obviously. They have struggled defensively. I don't think that's I don't think that's a secret to anyone at this point. They're only 10th in the conference in defensive efficiency in Big Ten games alone. And, I even I was just kind of reading, there was something in the Lafayette Journal and Courier yesterday, and I try very hard not to get sucked into, pregame quotes and, bulletin board material and stuff like that. But Mike Carmen talked to Trevion Williams, and Trevion said something like, I'm really looking forward to senior day. We're going to get IU in here, and it's going to be, it's going to be good to get them in here. They beat us down there. And it wasn't, he didn't say it in a real sort of braggadocious way, but he more or less kind of said, we're going to beat IU on Saturday on senior day, and that's going to be fun. And the only reason that gives me pause is because of kind of what's happened to Purdue in the last week. And, the fact that it was kind of it was a tough stretch to end this season, in East Lansing, in Madison, and then your rival at home. But, it was in Purdue's hands, and they went close twice and they missed twice. And now they got to come home. And yes, there is every chance that they're angry and they're fired up. And this is sort of the game where they take out all their frustrations of the last week on Indiana. I think that's certainly likely in my mind. But I can also see a world where it's a Saturday afternoon, it's a senior day. The emotions of senior day are always a little weird. They're not playing for a Big Ten title or celebrating a Big Ten title, which is what everyone would have thought they would be doing. When you were a Purdue player, coach, fan, whatever, in the moments where you sort of allowed yourself to dream, when you were looking at the schedule in the fall, you would have said Indiana on the last day of the season, that's when we'll be, raising a banner or firing off confetti or whatever. We will celebrate. We will put it on our rival and celebrate in front of them. You don't get to do that. And so, if I'm, and this is a dangerous thing for a reporter to say, but if I'm Mike Woodson, what I'm telling my team is just keep it close early. Just whatever we have to do to dig in and have it still be a game and still be a thorn in their side 10 minutes in, even if it's literally just kill the game, even if it's 12-11 with 10 minutes, with 10 minutes left in the first half, even if it's just the worst basketball game anybody's ever seen, just be there. Just don't go away and see if there comes a point in late first half, early second half, where suddenly it just kind of gets hard for Purdue, where they look around and all of a sudden it's not a chance to take out your frustrations on your rival, but it's actually, geez, this was supposed to be our coronation day, and we didn't win the Big Ten, and we didn't even take it to the last game, and now this is senior day, this rivalry game that we were supposed to just dominate, we were supposed to just sort of wipe them away. Well, now they won't go away, and this is all just proving a lot harder than we expected, and the fans aren't really into it because it's all been just a little bit. I think that the phrase in Britain is after the Lord Mayor's show. It's all just been a little bit kind of like the main event passed, and some of us are still here, even though it's not as exciting, it's not as interesting. If Indiana can do that, I think when I say they have a chance, I'm still picking Purdue in basically any circumstance. But I think that a lot of what happened Saturday is down to where Purdue is mentally. And that's at the start of the game. And then that's also, like I said, if I'm Mike Woodson, I'm saying do everything you can to make these first 10 minutes hard. All the effort you have, everything you can do, make these first 10 minutes difficult, and then see where they are. If the air comes out of the building, just that little bit, you don't let the students get cranked up and all that. That's the one chance I think Indiana has. And so I think a lot of it really is about where Purdue is compared to where Indiana is.
Yeah, Purdue certainly lamenting what could have been in a season where they, along with Michigan, were expected to vie for the Big Ten championship. Purdue season still turned out pretty well. Michigan may not make the tournament, but certainly had the opportunity to win the Big Ten at Purdue, and it's not going to be the case. It looks like Wisconsin's going to shockingly do that. That still blows my mind, but they played as a team all year, and then that's what their just desserts are. Zach, what's up next for you? Obviously the Purdue game, but I don't see anything new out today or yesterday from you other than some game coverage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting ready for the Purdue game Saturday. We should have a podcast. If it's not up from yesterday, then it should be dropping soon. I'll have something on Race Thompson next week. You know, I think there's obviously questions are going to linger for guys about, you know, are you coming back? Are you going to take the extra year? I think, you know, Race, like a lot of players, has just said it's going to be something he sorts through at the end of the season. On the other hand, you could see how emotional he was on Wednesday night. You know, we've heard some of his teammates kind of talk about him in the future past tense, if you want to say, talking about sort of, you know,
I was going to say he got rather emotional during senior days, which really
Davis said something about him like mentoring Jordan Geronimo because he knows that Geronimo will be in that position next year and that sort of thing. One way or the other, you know, I think it is. I think a lot of those decisions you have to remove yourself from the grind of the season. Like I think if you asked Dean Smith said forever that if you asked him if he wanted to retire in April, he'd always be like, yes, like I'm exhausted of basketball. Just get me out of here. And then he always found that if he took a month, went on vacation, you know, did a little recruiting, kind of got away from his team and the daily grind of practice and games, the passion kind of came back. So I don't think anybody can be held to their decision until they're, you know, allowed to be given a little bit of space from the season. But it does seem like Thompson is at least considering strongly the possibility that this is it for him at Indiana. And so just sort of a story about, you know, his career, how he's grown, what he's become for this team, and obviously how important he would be in the event. I think that the more likely event, frankly, at this point, that Indiana goes into that Big Ten tournament at they'd be 18-12 with a loss at Purdue on Saturday, needing a couple wins, you know, needing to find a way past whoever they see, whether it's, I guess, who would it even be right now? Would it be Rutgers? Would it be Iowa?
Michigan or Michigan State are the two most likely.
Okay, Michigan or Michigan State in that, because Indiana's probably going to be in the 8-9 game?
Not yet. They're pretty much locked into 9th right now, I believe.
So then they would get Wisconsin in the. So I guess maybe they'd be the only thing between Michigan, Wisconsin, and the quarterfinal. That would be interesting. The Big Ten might do what it can to avoid that. But jokes aside, I'm not suggesting anybody's rigging games. Just to be very, very clear. But you know, Race Thompson would be very, very important if Indiana goes into the Big Ten tournament feeling like it has work to do to get back into the NCAA picture as well. So that'll be kind of building up for that, and then figuring out where Indiana's going to land in the postseason picture. Because I think they're going to they're going to the postseason.
One way or the other. I know we've gone long, and Jeffrey the Greek's in the green room, but I've got to ask back about Race Thompson. Obviously, he could go to another school for a grad year if he wanted to, because he has the COVID year. But I wonder why would he leave here, this situation, which will be better next year, obviously, than this year. Why would he leave? Because I don't see a pro career for him just yet.
And I'm not predicting he's going to stay or leave. Again, what he told me was he's going to figure it out at the end of the season. And like I said, I bet if you ask most players on that roster right now, they'd be like, I don't want to come back because you're tired. And it's been a frustrating month. And you know, you're worn down physically, you're worn down emotionally and all that. And then, you know, you get removed from it. March in Bloomington is nice. And then you start thinking about Little Five and you remember how, you know, pretty this campus is and all this. And this isn't just specific to IU. It can be specific to a lot of schools, but you get the point I'm trying to make. I think that's the sort of decision that sometimes you're ready. Sometimes you just know, and you're just going to move on. Sometimes, you know, you need that little bit of space to really sort of think about it in a more sort of, I don't want to say unbiased way, but in a more, you know, sort of coldly unemotional way, I guess, to some extent. But I wouldn't predict he's going to go somewhere else. I wouldn't predict that he's maybe just going to move on with his life, whether that's trying to find a professional opportunity somewhere. I think he's the kind of player that could absolutely go play in Europe.
Oh, absolutely.
Or if he just wants to move on. Again, I mean, 5 years is a long time, and it's been a challenging 5 years for him. You know, he had the redshirt year, he had injuries. You know, last year, or excuse me, his second year in college, in particular, that big concussion. You know, there was the COVID year where nobody could, you know, where he's probably part of an NCAA tournament team, and then that kind of comes apart. He's been part of, you know, he's been through a coaching search. And listen, you know, and this is not maybe going to be the most popular thing to say on, you know, a show that's probably largely populated by IU basketball fans. You know, if Kansas calls in late March and says, Race, you'll start here. You want to come play for Kansas for 1 year. And I'm pulling Kansas out of thin air.
No,
my point is, you don't know how you're going to feel until you realize you're wanted in that sort of situation. And so maybe that does become something. You know, I think Al Durham was very much sort of a mind that he was just ready to move on and try to start a professional career somewhere last year. And then Providence came in and said, we really need you. We feel like we really need you. He felt wanted. He liked the opportunity. He went to Providence, and guess what? It worked out. They won the Big East.
He got a ring, and he's going to probably a number 4 seed in the tournament.
Yeah. And so, you know, he gets kind of that 1 second act. The point is, I don't know. And these guys are going to have a lot more options. And I would just be skeptical of, you know, other than the guys that, you know, are sort of surefire first round picks. You know, if somebody's telling you Johnny Davis is gone, well, duh, he's a lottery pick. Like, what's he going to do? Go from being the 7th overall pick to the 4th overall pick by coming back for a year? No. Other than those guys, I always treat the rumors about this person's leaving or that person's staying with a grain of salt at this time of year, simply because I think guys always get a little bit of perspective when they have a little breathing room from the season. And then when you layer in the transfer portal and the fact that you never know who's going to call and make you feel wanted and really sell you on something, that can change things as well.
Well, you're always wanted, especially each Friday. We appreciate you, man. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. I'm sure you're following him, but if not, you should be. And be a subscriber. Keep the local papers alive. I am, and you should be as well. Zach, I cannot thank you enough, as always. Great coverage, great talking to you, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
You bet. Coming up next, Jeffrey the Greek. He's in the house. He's back from vacay, baby. His mind is recharged. He's got the bourbon laid out. I'm sure he's got some bets laid out. We'll see how his bets have going and just life in general. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by good friends at RE/MAX Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Start the new year out in style with a new Honda from Andy Moore Honda. I should have been doing that. Whoa, whoa.
I can only do one segment now.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was putting 2 and 2 together. I've got a 9:30
we're off.
spot,
we're
but
off.
What's up?
So what do you need out at like 25 past or something?
Yeah, because we usually do 2 segments, right?
Yeah. Well,
I'm good for the first segment. I got a jet right after that, as it turns out. I've had a bunch of stuff go down.
Well, the show ends at 10:30 regardless.
Okay. So we got the show ends at 9:30 my time. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just went long. We missed a break in the first.
Yeah. Oh,
we've already missed one break, and then we went long.
Yeah.
So we missed a break and we went long.
So we'll be right up against the end of the show after this segment, anyways, right?
Oh yeah. I'm going to end up missing a break today, is all.
Okay. I'm good for one sec. I'm getting a little the 9:30 meeting I have to switch my presentation around a little bit. So I need like 5-10 minutes to do that. So I'm good for one segment, and then I'll just have to bounce.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we talk about Keegan Murray or Caitlyn Clark?
I mean, we could talk about either one of them. I don't know if Indiana basketball fans want an Iowa fan talking about basketball. But it is incredible that, I mean, they probably have both players of the year.
Yeah.
Well, and what's more amazing is Iowa men's team is not nearly as strong with the player of the year as the women's team.
Yeah. She's incredible.
Did she set Big Ten marks of anything?
She set the Big Ten marks of dudes actually wanting to watch women's basketball. I mean, like I'm watching women's basketball on TV. That's literally the first time I've done this in my entire life.
I mean, look, we've talked about this before. I've been a Michigan fan most of my life, and I watched the Michigan-Iowa women's game last week, and like every time she got across half court, I was like, someone guard her, and she.
But at the same time, you're like, something cool's gonna happen.
Yeah, you know? that too.
Yeah.
It is a for an opposing fan, like she's so much fun, but as an opposing fan, it is a demoralizing experience watching her just rain
Decades
shots
of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday, brought to you by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant here in Bloomington, located at Patterson and Rogers. You can find it inside Indiana basketball. It's Monday night at 7:05 with Don Fisher and Mike Whitson, and more importantly, some great food. Stop in there and have a bite. Joined now by Jeffrey the Greek. Ben, it's been a few weeks. We haven't had you. It's been like a vacation for us. No, I'm just kidding. It's been like a vacation for you, man. We've missed you.
So what you're saying is you want to fight on some Big Ten West scheduling right now. You just want to get right into it, or just kidding?
Is there any? Yeah, there's nothing. Well, that's great summer stuff. That's summertime. We got plenty to go to now. In the break, someone talked about. Well, no, it was Dylan that brought up Keegan Murray and Caitlyn Clark, who are more than likely, or Caitlyn Clark, of course, is going to win Player of the Year in the Big Ten for the women. And Keegan Murray is he going to beat out Johnny Davis for Player of the Year?
So Caitlyn Clark already won Player of the Year in the Big Ten. That's official as far as I understand it. Yeah, I mean, crazy that Dylan and I are talking about it. That I'm just going to be honest. I only have so much time in my life, and not a ton of my free time has been devoted to watching women's college basketball up to this point in my life. But I am clicking and watching Iowa basketball this year as much as I can because Caitlyn Clark is essentially Steph Curry when Steph Curry is having like one of those games, which Steph Curry has a lot, that's what she's doing right now. I mean, you literally got to start Gardner at the logo. You don't know what she can do. She is a blast to watch, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, I'll say this, and this will probably piss some people off, but that's okay. I generally do that. Women's basketball is something that most people don't watch unless they have a daughter playing or they have a vested interest. And especially if it's not good, there's no point in watching it. But I used to cover the Louisville team some. They're a damn good program. That's fun watching. Indiana has gotten really good. I tell you, I love watching Grace Berger play. She's a baller, man. She's a straight up baller, and I love watching her play. I love watching this team play. It's fun. They hit free throws. They hit 3-point shots. It's crazy. And check me if I'm wrong.
No,
the 3-point line is the same now for men and women. Is that correct?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, I think the men, because the women's line got moved back to where the men's line used to be, but the men's line also got moved back. So I think it's still it's a foot difference.
I thought that there was one line at Assembly Hall.
Is there?
I think so.
You're also asking the wrong guy. I watch a little bit of women's basketball because again,
I'm going to look.
Michigan's good,
but I think that it is. But even if it's not, I don't care. It's the same damn difference. They hit 3-point shots. They hit, but I can promise you one thing. I know for a fact the free throw line is 15 feet from the basket. And the basket is 10 feet from the damn ground.
I mean, for me, like, I want to preface this by saying, obviously, the NBA is just full of freaky athletes, but because of that, because the size of the court and the height of the rim hasn't changed, the athletes, the number of available freak athletes on the floor, it actually, to me, aesthetically hurts the game of NBA. It's tough to watch because the athletes are so good. It's a way better sport to watch in person. On TV, honestly, I mean, and again, this is credit to Caitlyn Clark. Watching women's basketball is probably, you could make a case, more pure basketball to watch with ball movement and actually setting up shots that they're, like
fundamental. They have to be more fundamentally sound because they're not as physically strong.
Right.
So their fundamentals have to offset the physical capabilities.
And then when you got fundamentals like Caitlyn Clark, which is basically she is literally open when she crosses the half court line. It's been crazy to watch. I mean, I just had a blast. Dylan, I know you did, and I apologize, but I had a blast watching that whole second half of the Iowa-Michigan women's basketball game. And Michigan kept fighting, man. I mean, you got to give them credit. They were down a lot and tried to stay in the game. But when somebody goes off for 40 points, there's just not much you can do.
When does Iowa play today?
Women's? I don't know. I guess I'm not as big of women. I'm a little bit preoccupied with my life, but I'm not.
Come on, man.
They play Northwestern at 6:30 tonight, according to the women's bracket. Yeah.
Well, that'll be a.
And then speaking of Iowa and Michigan crime, you got us to the Big Ten championship. At least we've been able to get back to you in some capacity. I mean, another good showing for the men's team last night, because I tweeted out, us Iowa fans are spoiled this year. I mean, what are the chances Caitlyn Clark and Keegan Murray in the same year, especially after, Iowa losing a 2-time, All-American last year. And like, we knew Keegan Murray was good. Iowa fans were already infatuated with Keegan Murray last year, but he has just been incredible, man. Like,
well, this begs the question, Jeffrey. If you had the great 2-time player in what's his name there?
Luka
Garza and Keegan Murray, but Iowa hasn't done diddly squat in the tournament.
Oh, Jim.
They haven't done diddly squat in the Big Ten.
Glass half empty, Jim.
No, wait a minute. You've got a team that could potentially have back-to-back players of the year, and they are finishing a distant 4th right now, and I don't know what they were last year.
Distant
4th. That just came to mind. I mean, you've got an Indiana team that sucked. That's the opposite. They don't have that.
I think the team that didn't live up to billing and was disappointing this year is obviously Michigan. I mean,
Purdue,
I could say the same thing.
Purdue.
And I was just going to say, I could say the same thing about Purdue. I mean, Purdue, it's been a tick since Purdue's won a regular season Big Ten championship as well. I mean, I'm not throwing shade at Fran or anybody this year. It took them a while to get. It took them a while. I mean, they had a lot to replace. They lost 2 NBA guys and another guy. to Kentucky. Like
he got back-to-back players of the year, and he had all of his sons on that team also.
I do think
nepotism.
that Keegan Murray made a really significant leap this year. He was not this player last year. Like even if Garza was not there last year,
he had Garza.
Well, that's true, but he averaged 7 points a game. He wasn't averaging like 12 or 13, where it
which
felt
that
like
is a
Garza
gigantic jump.
Yeah, it's a huge jump. Credit to him.
Yeah, I'll give it to you that Iowa last year didn't finish as well as they should have, or got as high as they should have with Luka and that team. I'll give you that. But this year, I mean, losing all that, replacing them. You know, I'm biased, obviously, but I think Fran should be coach of the year. I understand if it's going to be. I understand if it's. Well, it's between him and Greg Gard. I mean, that's not.
It's not even between him and anybody. It's Greg Gard, no question.
Yeah.
If it's Greg Gard, I totally get it. I just wonder if him getting involved with the scuffle, if that will actually knock him back a little bit. So it's possible.
No, because I don't think he did anything wrong in that.
I
don't think he did anything wrong.
I don't know about that. He definitely.
Juwan Howard was more wrong, but Greg Gard was also wrong.
Bingo. That is the correct take.
I don't think he did enough that there was any. He didn't do anything that 1,000 other coaches hasn't done.
Yeah,
Jim.
If you walk up,
Weber started it and was bitching at him, saying, "I'll remember that bullshit."
Maybe I'm old school, but if you walk up to a dude at a bar and you put your hands on him, you better get ready for a dust up. You don't do that.
I get that. I get that. I get that. And he quickly took it off because I think he may have said, "Don't touch me" or something. And he takes his hands off, and that was it. But he started jawing at him because he was calling a timeout. Well, he's pressing, so it's like, shut up. Shut up. And
I mean,
but I get the one thing, and he took his hand off, but it wasn't, he walked away, man. He was out of the picture, and Juwan swings at somebody else. Another assistant.
Again, I mean, obviously,
swung at a guy.
You can't do it. I mean, Dylan said it. I mean, he got suspended for the rest of the year. I mean, I felt like that. I'm just kind of like, a lot of times, I don't think things are as great or as horrible as people make. He shouldn't have done what he did, but people wanted the guy tarred and feathered, Juwan Howard. Like I think people overreacted a little bit. But I mean, in the end, like you can't do what Greg Gard did. And the one thing we definitely know is at the end of a game, Fab Five guys really struggle with timeouts. I mean,
well, I've seen who didn't see the tweet that if Juwan Howard's going to punch somebody over a timeout, it ought to be Chris Webber.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, you never saw that one? Oh, that was the first thing I saw. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I can still see that in my mind.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's
Let's take a quick break because we missed one because Jeffrey's got to get out of here today. But let's take a quick break and get that in, and we'll be back with more Jeffrey the Greek and Dylan Sinn. We're having fun here on this Friday. Back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant in Bloomington.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether it's a celebration or just a relaxing night away from the kitchen.
I don't think it's crazy to think that they would give the Big Ten Coach of the Year to Fran. If he beats,
I think it is absolutely nuts. They're 12-7 in the conference, 12-7 with a potential player of the year. And Wisconsin is 15-4. They're going to win the league. In a league that Illinois has better personnel, Purdue has better personnel, Michigan might have better personnel, but they're going to win this league simply because they didn't make mistakes. They had one guy that led them. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not a Greg Gard fan, but
the difference between Purdue and Wisconsin is it all comes down to who has had the luck at the end of games, and it's all been on Wisconsin. I mean, if you just flip two games, including, the Wisconsin Purdue game, it was funny because watching that end of that game, Purdue fans are like, this is where we screw this up. and then Wisconsin fans are confident because they pull them out, and it was like manifest destiny for both fan bases at the same time. It was crazy.
Yeah. I think that is part of it. Is I feel like Wisconsin has had an incredibly lucky season. We talked about this earlier. They're 11-0 in games decided by 5 points or fewer. They're not that good of a team. They have more double-digit losses in Big Ten play than they do double-digit wins, and they're going to win the conference. And so, I mean, that's why I think guard, and I think you're probably right. The guard probably wins it just because like people are going to look at that and be like, oh, that must be coaching. I don't think it's coaching. I think it's generally just luck. But
and that's why. And that, like, I honestly respect and kind of like Wisconsin football, even though they're Iowa's rival.
Yeah.
I fucking hate Iowa or Wisconsin basketball. I fucking hate it. Like, it might be my worst hated Big Ten entity.
That's why
not far off. Yeah,
you're trying to. Yeah, that's why you're trying to discount Greg Gard.
Give me.
I'll make you this bet. Fran McCaffrey doesn't get second.
Oh, I'll make that bet.
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want on it?
Whatever. I mean, we can bet money or a prize or whatever.
Next show I'm on, or one of us has to say something embarrassing. I don't know, something like that. We'll come up with something. But
I have to wear an Iowa.
Okay, there you go. I don't have any Indiana yet, but
I don't have any Iowa stuff.
I'll send
I barely have any Indiana stuff.
Yeah,
I gave it all away because you can't wear it.
It's embarrassing.
No, I can't wear it being Indiana.
What?
Oh, God.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat on this Friday. Wrapping it up, having some fun. Jeffrey the Greek. Dylan Sinn. Oh, don't forget Jeffrey the Greek from Eyes on Big Ten podcast, Eyes on Big podcast. Make sure you go there and hit that up. Is that year round?
Year round, yep. Year round big football. We barely touch on maybe, a non-football topic every now and then, but we're specifically football.
And is it just on Iowa, or you guys talk about other people?
We talk about all 14 teams, baby.
I just wanted to make sure that they knew that there were 13 other teams in the conference. They get sometimes distracted.
No, that was the whole basis behind the podcast. Because most podcasts you listen to, the only thing they talk about is Ohio State, Michigan. So that was kind of the genesis of the podcast.
Perfect. So you can get Indiana just had, as a matter of fact, yesterday, Tom Allen met with the media and talked about spring ball coming up. Indiana again. I hate to say this, Dylan. The quarterback room is deep. Supposedly, potentially deep. Jeffrey, they've got a transfer from Missouri. You've got Jack Tuttle, who has a ton of experience. You've got Donovan McCulley, who's gotten some experience. You've got this walk-on that looked better than all of them last year, to be frankly honest with you, and I'm not kidding. He played with poise. You've got Dexter Williams, whose knee was hurt, who's back. You've got a new offensive coordinator that is, unknown, kind of unproven, unknown. What's the offense going to look like? There's been a lot of departures. It's going to be a different look, and I don't know what that look is going to be like. Dylan, I have no idea, Jeff. I would expect, because of knowing what Tom Allen wants, it's going to be a multi-effect offense, but he seems to like that dual threat type of action, and I think that's what we'll see considered. but I've never seen Barzilak, if that's how you pronounce his name, from Missouri. I've never seen him play. Jeffrey, did you see him over when he's in the SEC?
A little bit. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, Indiana football is all over the place right now. We're actually doing a mailbag podcast, and your producer sent a question in and was asking about, how do you feel about Indiana football going into 2022? And I don't know if I can swear on this show. But it looks like bleep right now. If we're being honest, you said you don't know.
Well, the schedule is first of all, I don't care if they had the expectations of last year. This schedule is much more daunting than last year's schedule was.
Yeah, schedule's always going to play into it. You said you don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if Tom Allen knows what it's going to look like. Poor Tom Allen. I heard him interviewed on College Sports Radio yesterday, and I was driving back from a meeting, and they asked him one question about Indiana football, and then asked him 3 questions about Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. And it's like, oh man, like the guy comes on, he wants to promote his program, and they talk about other players and teams. Obviously, everything always comes down to the quarterback at some point. I think we've seen enough of Tuttle. I will say he has battled injuries, but the fact that he's always battling injuries is a concern. And then after that, it's a true sophomore and a transfer. And I always feel like it just smells like trouble when I feel that Indiana fans are pinning all their hope on a transfer that really wasn't fantastic at the other school he was at. So I don't know. It's my guess is Tom Allen is going to have to do everything he can to pull every team he plays into a phone booth and kind of try to beat them up and hopefully pull out 6 wins.
Dylan?
I would like to point out, you talked about the quarterback room a little bit. I thought it was interesting, Allen, in his press conference the other day, kind of getting everyone prepared for spring. He said that Donovan McCulley was one of their best players. So they don't know who's going to start a quarterback. He said that McCulley was one of their best players. That seems to me to be a problem. I like Donovan McCulley. I liked him coming out of high school.
Unless there has been a gigantic leap in the offseason.
Well, and I thought I saw flashes with McCulley. I did. But you can't blame everything on the quarterback. That was a system-wide shutdown last year. I don't know if Lamar Jackson could have gone in there and took that thing out from the doldrums. Like the O-line was shutting down. I don't know. There was issues all over. You'd be surprised in a college locker room how a different year and mindset can reset things. That's what Tom Allen is trying to do right now, is reprogram their young brains into, being focused and being positive and being confident. You'll hear coaches talk about confidence all the time. That is what they're trying to do through this spring and summer.
I think that the biggest concern going forward is the offensive line. That's the one place that they didn't really shore up a whole lot in the offseason. They seem to have taken a step forward at every other position in terms of at least the personnel they have available.
There was changes made.
Right.
There was transfers in and out. It seems like I don't remember anybody transferring out, and I don't remember anyone transferring in.
And the position coach is the same as it was. Yeah.
And that was the biggest problem that there was. That's like going to the hospital with an issue in your stomach, and the issue is an ulcer, and you take the intestines around it out, but you leave the ulcer.
I hope that would never happen, but
I mean, maybe my mind makes some dumb, quick analogies, but
that was fantastic. Well, it fit because I think that offense gave a lot of Hoosier fans an ulcer, and it looked anemic and sick most of the year. So it's a good analogy.
And it's sad because, and again, God, I hate it. I hate it for Tom Allen. I hate it for the Indiana program. They had Indiana fans on the edge of their seats, ready to become Indiana fans. They were ready to become a full-fledged Indiana fan. They were ready to buy in. And it would have taken a second season of that to really take a bite to give them a chance. They didn't get there. They didn't even get close.
And that's why. And that's why this year is huge, because I still think there's a little bit of vested interest. And if they can grasp that, grab it and get to a bowl or maybe better, I think you can get some of the good feels back. But if they go, 2-10, something like that, oof.
Well, and that's, you know what? I hate to say this, but we have to see this team. Who knows? Maybe this offensive coordinator is just been waiting for the right spot and things click, and the offense clicks. Who knows? I don't know. We have to see it. But judging on what we saw and what we know, what they have, if I was a fan, I would be very, very scared. I know that they can make a bowl game, and that's by winning 6 games, but that's going to take them upsetting potentially 2 to 3 teams.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to get to a bowl game.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to travel to Cincinnati this year as a non-conference game.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Hey, what about bets? Oh my God, we're out of time.
Yeah.
So I got to close out. I was going to ask you about some bets. Damn it. We didn't get to do that. Next week, we'll have all kinds of bets. We'll just do betting talk. Got the NCAA tournament. Are you a big bettor on the tournament at all, though?
Definitely I'm a part of pools and whatnot. Yeah, love them.
We'll do that. Man, we got ran along. So sorry about that. Jeffrey, brother, I know you got to run. Thank you so much. Thanks, gone. Guys. Make sure you check out Eyes on Big podcast with his co-host, Big Kurt. And thank you, Dylan Sinn. I can't thank you enough. Big thanks to Alec Lasley as well, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Thanks to Will for sitting in today as well. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. Until post-game of Purdue, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.